Hello there, and a huge welcome to this week's episode of Gina Gardiner and Friends. You know, I think it's so important that we live with intention, and I have very much a guest who is an absolute resonance with that. An incredible lady, Teresa Wornstaff. She's a high-level intuitive, a business and life mentor, and she has so much wisdom to offer, and I am really thrilled to welcome her as my guest on Gina Gardiner and Friends. Hello there.
Hello there, Gina. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you. Today
Oh,
feels like it's going to be fun and rich.
I'm sure it is. Before we get started on our theme of living with intention, share a bit of your journey and how you've come to be here.
Oh, thank you for asking. Living by intention came as a result of living life by default and not, excuse me, and not being intentional with what I wanted, with what my soul wanted me to do. I grew up in a traditional family and went to school, and I got the job, and then I got married, and then I had kids. And it was all of the societal norms that I was taught would make me successful and happy. And yet it didn't. It
No.
didn't. And so I was depressed. I had physical symptoms. I had Hashimoto's, all of these different things manifested in my body. I ended up getting divorced and being a single mom, which for anybody who's had to do that, it's a struggle. It's
Yeah.
really hard. And then one day I decided enough is enough, and I
Mhm.
started consulting in business. And that got me halfway there. So I spent about 20 years, 18, 20 years consulting in business. And I loved the freedom of expression, the creativity, the collaboration, the support. But not all the pieces were there. There was still something missing. Then when COVID hit and I went deep within and I just focused on myself, I realized that the biggest part of me, my intuition, wasn't expressed overtly. I wasn't sharing that I know I can tap into your soul, I can tap into the universe, and I can share wisdom with you that will allow you to catapult to that next level. And it wasn't until I'd say about August 2021 that I actually got brave and put intuition on my website.
Ah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think where you're using intuition, and I've always felt comfortable about using intuition. I had a struggle in terms of owning spirituality and the spiritual dimension of being a person or being a leader. And, one of the things that's happened for me over the last year, 18 months, is I have recognized that more and more people are ready to recognize that they have an inner wisdom, they have intuition, and that's part of their spirituality. And there's nothing pink and fluffy about it. And you don't have to wear Indian cotton robes or imagine a red Indian sitting on a horse with red toenails. None of that. Spirituality is great business. Using your intuition, great business.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett said early on in his career, he'd failed to listen to his intuition and it cost him $1 billion.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve Jobs, the same. He
Yeah,
said
absolutely.
he would gather all the data, get all the analysis, and then use his intuition to make the final decision.
And I think we miss so much when we are engaged in the white noise and there's so much to do that we don't allow ourselves to either listen or, having listened, to trust it.
Yes.
So
Trust is a big leap.
it is a big leap, isn't it? But it just strikes, you talk about living with intention, and I want like you to explain to our listeners how living with intention and intuition are inextricably linked, I believe. What's your view?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When we live with intention, we're very clear on some foundational requirements of being a human, knowing what our values are.
Yeah.
What are our immutable boundaries? Like, I won't allow this in my life because it's not healthy for me.
Yeah.
I won't overgive. I won't overstep. Understanding what your vision for your world is. How do you want to see your life unfold?
Yeah.
And when we go into things like values and vision and purpose and meaning and even vision for the world,
Yeah.
we allow ourselves to dream big. And when we dream, we drop into that intuitive spiritual place within ourselves. Creativity is born of heart and soul. And
Yep.
when we let the soul have a voice, the outcome invariably 100% is better than anything we could construct in our little mental minds.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think we've lived for so long with that sense of logic, of, having, I've got to see proof in order to believe it. And yet
Yes.
we can't see gravity. But if you've fallen on your bottom, that gravity is real and is working. And yet our intuition, that inner wisdom, that gut feeling, those flashes that we have, are just as real as gravity if we give them the space, we give those ideas, give our intuition the opportunity to speak.
I agree. And our sense of wanting to control, and that's, of course, using the mind to determine all of our outcomes and negating all the magic,
Yeah.
that was born out of fear. As a world, we went through so much. And there was a lot of people that said, we just want to control what's going on. So we're going to do school like this. We're going to do learning like this. We're going to do running a nation like this. We're going to do religion like this. And if you didn't fall into those constructs, you were outcast.
Yeah. I believe that we are still wired in very much the same way that we were as cavemen and women. We like to think that we're hugely evolved.
Yeah.
But in those days, and I've said this on the show many times, that, if you did something wrong within the tribe and you were cast out, your chances of survival were little to nothing. And I think that need to belong, that need to be part of, is still very much hot-wired into us. And I think that, us being able to step outside of those conditioning norms and say, is this right for us, for the world, for other people? That's something that many people still struggle with.
Absolutely. I did myself for 30 years in corporate,
Yeah.
and
Sorry. I'd like to really look at how you help people live intentionally. What are the principles? What are the underpinning things that you give people to help them recognize that they too can live a life with purpose? We're talking about living with intention. And Teresa, how do you help people use their intuition to live with intention, to live with purpose?
That's such a perfect question. Thank you, Gina. So everybody get a pen and write this down, because this is one phrase that you want to put on the fridge or on your computer screen. Life doesn't happen to you. It reflects you.
Okay. Now, if you're driving, you can listen to the replay of this. It's on the yeah, it's on the radio station. You can look at the archive. But please repeat that, because then people will remember it, even if they are driving.
I would love to. Life doesn't happen to you. It reflects you.
So
Now,
share what you mean by that.
Yes, it's exactly what you said. It's being able to go in and trust your inner knowing. Trust that what you're feeling, seeing, hearing, knowing is optimal for you. If we don't align to ourselves, to what is optimal for us, we can never know how we can align to others, because we're not showing up fully ourselves and fully present.
Yeah.
So when I work with my clients, and I work with executives and founders all over the world, and it's always the same. It doesn't change. How are you feeling? What do you think about that idea? Where do you see yourself going? What does your heart want to say? All of those questions are vital to cultivate this relationship with your inner knowing.
Mm.
One of the exercises that I do with my clients when they've hit a wall: what wants to be done next? Don't think into the future, just what wants to be done next. Because when we go to do something, we can ask ourselves, do we want to go to the grocery store? Or do we want to go for a walk? Or should I sit down and finish that report? And feel, as you say each of those options, feel in your body. What does it feel like? Because I guarantee one of those options is going to feel better than the other two. And you may surprise yourself. It may be finish the report. There may be something as you start writing that wants to come out and be known by you. It may be you need to give yourself space. Go for a walk. So it's really simple tools that we can employ every single day in every situation. Another one is to be considerate in our response. Now, let me explain what that means. When somebody says or does something or asks a question, before just spitting out the first thing that is an automatic response, step back and think, what wants to be said? What is optimal for me and the other person? So as you do these small exercises, you're cultivating trust.
You know, it's interesting because I talk very much to clients about taking radical responsibility for their thoughts, for their language, their actions, how and when, or in fact, whether they do or say something at all, that they actually come from a place where they are in the habitual round of thinking and acting. And most people operate out of their habitual patterns, to one where you stop being reactive, to one where you can be proactive and you're making an active choice. And I think, you know, what you described is very much the same. We're using different language, but it's very much the same thing. And I think, you know, when we are living intentionally, then you are using your senses more. You are engaging that sixth sense of intuition. Those are the words they're speaking, but what's the intention behind what they're saying? They may have shouted at me or used that tone of voice, but there's a message here that they want me to hear. all I'm hearing at the moment is the tone of voice. What's underneath that? And when you do that, you have the option of responding in a very different way.
Yeah, that's spot on, Gina. It's all about self first. You have to get yourself right with moving forward.
Yeah,
And then the world presents very, very differently, doesn't it?
it does. I'm reminded that so many people, I don't know about you, but that I work with or I come across, have a sense that they want to live a life that has that they want a purpose in life, but they don't know what it is, or they think that what they've come up with isn't big enough or grand enough. And I talk to them about living intentionally with purpose, that you can wash up with purpose. You can look out of I'm looking at my courtyard at the moment and seeing the leaves are becoming autumnal, that you can do any action with intentionality. And if you simply do that, I think your quality of life is going to change.
100%. It will change dramatically, and you'll feel happier, you'll feel more joy, and it'll come naturally. It's not something you'll have to strive for or to create with an activity you think will be fun, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The opportunity to step into purpose must start with understanding who you are and what you value.
I think everything needs to start with that. You can't lead other people unless you lead yourself. You know, not effectively, not in an enlightened, wholehearted way, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When I channeled a 6-week course
Okay.
that I'm in the middle of right now, actually, and it's called Live on Purpose. And it was 6 specific steps to find your purpose: values, vision, purpose, and then understanding the obstacles, because we create obstacles,
Yeah.
A, to grow us, to learn, but also to they come from programming, from
Yeah. Yeah.
childhood, our triggers, right? And then define what success means to you.
Yeah.
What does success mean to you? So there you go. There's a 6-week class. Short conversation.
You know, do you live intentionally? And if you do, could you live more intentionally? And if you don't, where's your starting point going to be? You know, you say that that your clients are very often senior executives and people who have huge responsibility and also the opportunity to influence and make a difference.
Mhm.
How do you think that the work that you do, in terms of living with intention, what role does that have to play with these leaders, and where are they taking it? If that's not a very that's a bit of a clumsy way of talking, but I think you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, Jean. I know exactly what you mean. Leaders, whether they're new or seasoned, tend to recognize at some point of their leadership career that they've got to get themselves right,
Mhm.
that they can't be the hammer, that the velvet glove has far more influence than the hammer.
Absolutely.
So they look at ways to self evolve.
Yeah.
And when they do that, then they become better leaders. As you know, this is what
Yeah.
you teach and show your people. What happens is, and I'll go back to Mr. Emerson for this: who you are speaks so loudly, I cannot hear your words.
Yeah.
You become the pebble in the pond, and the ripple
Mm.
influence you have by being, and I'm talking with a capital B, a capital E, being your best self, then gives space for others to show up and be their best selves. And this is actually an energetic,
Yeah.
spiritual interaction. It's alchemical because you entrain, and they're able to read your energies subconsciously and learn by experiencing and energetically connecting. It's so beautiful. I think this is how we change the world. If we master ourselves and be our best self, ripple that into the world, then it becomes this exponential light turning on in many people.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why I'm so pleased to have you on the show, and to encourage, so many of my guests are coming from a place of light and love, and wanting, not only wanting to make a difference, but having done the inner work themselves. And there is no shortcut for doing that inner work. You can work with someone and that can accelerate your journey. But I think, the recognition that you have to do that inner work yourself. People can act as your guide, but they can't actually take the walk for you. But it just strikes me that if we look at what's going on in the world, there is a need, I believe, for leaders who lead with integrity, compassion, and the courage to do what's right. And when they're standing in their genuine power, it's not about having dominion. You talk about the hammer. It's not about using the hammer, but being the example, being the model, and then seeing the potential in other people and nurturing that, and allowing those people the space to grow in a safe, loving environment.
I agree 100%. I was in leadership for most of my career, everything from team leadership to the executive suite. And one of the lessons that has stuck with me forever was I was coaching a young woman in moving her into a leadership position. She made a decision that I knew wasn't the right one, but I allowed her to make the decision and take authority. And in doing so, she came back to me literally half an hour later and said, wow, that was not the right decision. Instead, I want to go here.
Yeah.
But because she had experienced it,
Yeah.
it stayed with her. And she became so much more influential from that kind, loving, courageous,
Absolutely.
right? Courage to make a mistake.
But you'd also provided a safe space for her to do that. And had she come back to you and you had said, tough, you've made a decision, now you've got to lie on your bed, you've made it, or you had in some way made light of it, or ridiculed her for that, that equally could have created huge damage moving forward. So I think it's a two-pronged thing. The person themselves needs to be courageous enough to admit they've made a mistake and say, I recognize this isn't right. I'd like to do things differently. And for those who are their superior in terms of their decision-making authority, to have that capacity to say, yeah, you've made the right decision now and I will support you. And then people can grow. So congratulations. I think you've given a really powerful example. And I hope if you're listening to this, that you'll recognize that as a leader, whether you're leading your family or, a group of friends, or, ICI, it doesn't really matter. The principles are the same, aren't they?
They are the same. And you make a great point. We're a leader no matter where we're at. If we're at the pub with friends, we're in a leadership position. We're in a position to influence. Think of be intentional with how you want to deliver who you are in that environment. Family, friends, work, everywhere.
And I think the other point I'd like to sort of just push before we start to close out is this issue of being. It's been a big part of my spiritual journey over the last 18 months, I would say. And I am a consummate human doing. I'm very, very good at the doing. Not and owning myself as a being and being prepared to just intentionally be quiet and still is something that I've struggled with and is still a work in progress. But I'm conscious of the time. Teresa, where can people find you?
I would love for people to go to my website, teresawornstaff.com, and spelt the way it sounds, no H in Teresa. And I'd also like to let people know that I have a 6-month course called The Alchemy of an Intentional Life. So feel into it. Read about it on my website. Feel into it. You'll know if it's for you. If it's not, that's okay too. And I have some free meditations and other things to
Brilliant.
support your journey.
How fabulous. Thank you. Now, we're very pleased and proud to be members of B1G1, Buy One, Give One, which is an
Yeah.
incredible organisation that has projects all over the world. Every cent of money that's donated goes to the projects, and it has been set up so that businesses particularly, although individuals can join, can make giving and kindness an integral part of what they do. It's great marketing, but it's also, you're doing tremendous good in the world. We've got 4 projects on the go at the moment that we're donating to, and we ask every guest to choose a particular project out of the 4, and we donate on their behalf. And so the projects at the moment are clean water, feeding the hungry, education, and there's a project for young people in the Ukraine. Which would you like us to donate to on your behalf?
Oh, thank you, Gina. I would love to support Ukraine. That's where I'm from.
I have a Ukrainian refugee who's come under the host for Ukrainians living with me, been living with me since May. An amazing experience. She didn't speak any English when she arrived. I've learnt such a lot. I haven't learnt any Ukrainian apart from that, I have to say. But she's doing really well, and it's been an absolute joy. So we will be sending money to that particular project. And remember, if you're listening to this, you can encourage other people to listen, because we donate free meals based on the number of listeners. So you can be helping just by listening and encouraging others to do the same. Teresa, it only remains for me to say a huge thank you to you for joining me today.
It has been such an honor, Gina. Thank you for
Oh,
everything you're doing.
my pleasure. And to say to you, I'd love to know your story. I'd love to know what's going on in your life. And, please do let me know. If you contact me through Gina at Gina Gardiner and Friends, GinaGardiner and friends.com. Let me know your story. Let me know if you have a story that would be really good to be on the show. And, just engage and let me know what you think of the show. Would love to hear. So thanks for joining me. Take care, and we'll see you on the next show. Bye bye now.